Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. The topic of this 10-minute moan is looking and dissecting the strange turn of events from Shabana Mahmood when she is discussing protests. Now, just to look at things in chronological order and show how stupid her actions and words have been, and looking at the true meaning behind her words. Because this is yet another thing where we appear to be having laws thrust on us that have quite a different meaning behind them than that that's been sold to the public. When you think of the digital ID rules that will come into place by Labour, that's where they're going with this, and they put it up as it's going to stop illegal migration, and it's total bollocks. So this is just the same, exactly the same. These new laws that Shabana Mahmood is miraculously came across will be used not for the purpose that's put in front of us. So what happened was we had the Manchester attack at a synagogue by a man who has now been described by the anti-terror police as being, what's the word they've used, I can't remember, but basically being an Islamic fundamentalist, jihadi type guy. Well, his name's Jihad, so you kind of understand that. Now, that happens. The government then came out and asked those who were going in pro-Palestine stroke anti-Israel marches that weekend to please stop, please consider your actions, but we can't do anything to stop you, which is total bollocks. You already have legislation to enable any protest to be stopped under certain circumstances. Now, as someone who is prone to a protester too, I quite like the notion that you can protest. It's a civil right you have as a UK citizen. But I do understand that in some instances, people might want to put a lid on that. If you were doing it at, say, an army base, a navy base, a air force base, somewhere which, like, I don't know, an oil refinery, things like that, where, it could cause issues. I understand that. However, to be able to stop people in the street from protesting in the street when they're not any nuisance, they're not causing any bother, they're not, stopping people going about their business, I have to fundamentally oppose that. So what we were told by the government, not just Shabana Mahmood, but even Keir Starmer, was people should consider their protests at the weekend, and they had no way of stopping it. So guess what happened? There was loads of protests, pro-Palestine stroke anti-Israel protests with, was it about 500 arrests? Because many of them decided that this was pre-planned. They would hold up banners supporting a prescribed terror organisation, which is Palestine Action. So they knew before they went out of the house that day, the banner they were going to hold up, none of them can claim that they didn't know Palestine Action is a prescribed terror group, and there was loads of arrests. I wonder how many will get charged, because that may be quite a different thing. Now, after this civil unrest on the streets of London and many cities, we now hear that Shabana Mahmood is going to implement more draconian laws on protests. And what she said is she will do this when it's repeated protesting which affects minority groups. Now, in the context of the chronological order and things that have happened recently, one would expect to understand and take that as these pro-Palestine marches are going to get banned. However, I'm not so stupid, because let me just make a prediction here. And my prediction is they will put this stuff through, because that's the type of government we have that want to control every aspect of life. And the first group to be held accountable by the new laws that they will push through quickly will be those who protest at asylum hotel. Because you could argue that her words could also describe them, where they are repeated protests, and it can affect a minority group, i.e. migrants. So watch this space. This is exactly what's going to happen. If they put this through, they might call off the odd one or two pro-Pali anti-Israel march, right? But the vast majority of those affected by any new legislation will be, take this to the bank, those who protest at asylum hotels, myself included. Behind me is Glasgow Sheriff Court, one of Europe's busiest courts. And because of that fact, we'll see every week several members of the public and podcasters, etc., facing trials in here for a number of things. However, an increasing number are for posts on social media, videos on YouTube, etc., etc., etc. And for that reason and that reason alone, I believe it would make sense for everybody who does podcasts as a minimum to join the Free Speech Union, because they will help protect you when the law turns on you. That doesn't give you carte blanche to say what you want as a member, but it does give you the protection to help you when the law goes wrong. This is not now only something that should be considered by podcasters, because we are seeing more and more people each day arrested. Normal people who don't even see themselves as civilian journalists arrested for posts on social media. So it makes sense to join the Free Speech Union, because we live in this country in 2025. I have protested at asylum hotels in Aberdeen and in Falkirk and in Epping, although we didn't get to the hotel that night because the protest was halfway up the high street at the square where there were speakers, etc. But that is still a protest against asylum hotels, and that will be the first stop for these idiotic laws that they're pushing through. But it's weird that they do it after the event. Now, actually, there are existing laws that could have prevented the Palestine ones that we saw at the weekend. Easy to do. There's umpteen laws you could use to move those on. But they chose not to. They chose to allow them to happen, knowing fine well that the appetite would be then, we can sell this as a notion that will stop the pro-Palestine marches, and we'll use the law for a completely different thing. Now, if you need any more examples of this, this is a tactic often used by governments, where they create an issue almost to then put in some draconian measures. It's happened in umpteen examples over time. And the most recent one is, well, we need ID cards. Right, what will we do? Well, what's a hot topic just now? Oh, immigration. Society don't like the levels of immigration, so what we'll do is we'll tell them that these ID cards are going to fix that problem. It won't fix that problem. It'll not even be a deterrent for that problem. It won't change nothing with regards to the amount of people wanting to come here illegally. But what it does do, it gives the government access to everybody's details, so they can clandestinely watch anybody. That's the harsh reality of it. And then you've got a big, massive and growing pool of people who believe that that will enable things like 15-minute cities and carbon passports and, restrict the amount of farm meat you eat and all this stuff. Now, that is a possibility. I'm not here to sell those messages, but I can't discount them, because nothing should surprise us and what governments these days, particularly in Western countries and Western nations, want. And the people who should be getting, and there's when you've got existing laws that can cure something, there's no need for new ones. And if you genuinely didn't want those marches to happen over the weekend, they didn't need to happen, because we've got a bag of laws that could quite easily have stopped them. We've seen protests stopped previously. When they happen, you put in a section, whatever order, and tell everybody they've got half an hour to disperse. There you go, end of your protest. And you could think of numerous reasons and or excuses to do such a stuff. So you don't need more laws to stop these things. And when they are for prescribed terror groups, to support them, and people are quite blatantly supporting a prescribed terror act, that can't be. Whether you want to argue that these things should or shouldn't be prescribed is a totally different conversation. They are prescribed. So therefore, if you openly support them, and I can't believe the amount of older people that got arrested, right? Getting arrested and getting charged are two different things. But it seems to me that that was all pre-planned. We'll make sure. And I remember listening to GB News on radio, live at the protests in the afternoon. And I can't remember the guy, sounds as if he's got a non-Irish accent, the reporter. He actually commented, he says, quite unusual, the amount of older people at this protest. It was as if it was pre-planned. Put the oldies there, put people with dog collars there, put people in wheelchairs there, get them all to hold up Palestine Action. We'll get them arrested. The world will be raging about it, and so be it. And so it was to pass. So there you go. There's a video. If you want others to see this video, click a thumbs up, hit the comments below, and hit the share button. If you're not already done so, or you believe you are already subscribed, please double check. And if you're not, hit the subscribe button. My stats just now on the channel are very good in terms of two things and very bad for the third thing. Very good click-through rate, very good length of video watched, but surprisingly, the amount of people that YouTube are putting these into their timelines is very, very low, substantially low, worryingly low. So I'd like as much help as possible in the videos. The more comments, the more likes, the more shares, and watching it for as long as you can, all help drive it into other people's timelines. But more important than all that, unless you're the type of person that wants to gaslight the nation from a position of power, i.e. the Home Secretary, then not you. But everyone else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.